Welcome to JonGetsGames. Today I'll be doing a Kickstarter preview for The Networks. In this game you play a TV station manager trying to line up great shows with good stars and advertising to keep your revenue going as well as lots of people watching your show. All the while you need to pay attention to the future and know when you're going to kick old shows out and bring new shows in. First, I'm going to go through an entire season of gameplay to give you an idea of how the game plays, and then I'll give you some initial impressions I have for the game. Here is a bird's eye view of a starting 3-player setup for The Networks. If you look up here, you'll see that the game takes place over 5 seasons, and I'm going to show you the first season and how each person takes their turn so you can see how the game plays. Before I go any further, I will say that this is a prototype preview copy. There is no art on any of the cards and many of the pieces are temporary, but you'll get the feel for how the overall game plays. I want to show you a couple other quick things. Up here we have a turn order track. You'll see that it goes blue, purple, green. So that is the order that the players are going to go in for the first season. It changes as seasons go on, and I'll explain that. And then we have a block of cards here. The top cards are stars that you will be able to hire and play into your specific shows. The middle line here is advertisements. You'll get to add those to your shows to increase your revenue. Here are a bunch of shows that you can add in to your network. So you'll be adding stars and advertisements into these new shows that you can purchase. And lastly, we have some network cards down here that give you one-shot bonuses. If we look down here, these are the player areas for each person. They each start with 3 neutral, very kind of boring shows that are pretty funny. And then each person starts with a star and an advertisement in their green room. And then this is some money that people start with, so let's jump into the game. Alright, it's the blue player's turn, and I've got focused on these 4 rows of cards because really, this is where the game is. There are 6 different things you can do on your turn. You choose 1 out of 6 options, but 4 of those options are simply drawing a card from these 4 rows. So I'm going to explain those as we go along. The last 2, they'll come up at some point. Since this game is all about getting better shows to get more viewers to look at your specific TV station, it seems pretty obvious that the blue player is going to want to grab the best TV show with their first action. And they can look at all these down here, and they have a couple things going on. The first thing to point out is this number with the spiky arrows around it, and this is the amount of money it costs to hire that show into your TV network. And we'll see that this costs 1 and 1 and 2, and the blue player has $5. Because they're the starting player, each subsequent player gets more, so they have to be a little careful with their money. And the more important thing to look at here are these numbers on the right hand side, and these are the viewers that show is going to draw to your network as seasons go on. It starts with the first season with this eyeball here, and then in the second season it'll go here, and it'll slowly get worse. Lastly, if you look here, we'll see a little 10 p.m. next to this, and a big number and a small number. This one's got an 8 p.m. This one's also got an 8 p.m. There are 3 different time slots on your player board, 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and 10 p.m. And if a show is in its desired time slot, it's going to get more viewers. So I think what the blue player is going to do is they want to purchase this very charismatic explosion show. It's going to cost them $1. We see this symbol up here that shows that this show is an action show. And we're going to want to put it into the 10 p.m. slot, so we're going to get those 10 viewers. It's also good to know this number up in the top right is a recurring cost. So at the end of each season, this is going to cost another $1. So I need to keep that in mind. So here's Blue's area, so they're going to spend the $1 to hire the show to the bank, and now they're going to slide it into their 10 p.m. slot. So first thing, we see that Breath Mints Around the Globe is the current show that's going on in this time slot. So this one is going to get bumped, and it's actually going to go into reruns. So what you do is you spin this card around, we have this number up here, and we put it down here, and this means we're actually going to get 1 viewer at the end of the season for this show going into reruns. And we slide very charismatic explosions down here, and we put this little cube on here to show that this is the season that we're working with. Lastly, down in the bottom is a requirement that's associated with each show, and this one says it needs to have an advertisement associated with it before you can even put the show down. Fortunately, every single player begins the game with a starting somewhat poor star and a starting somewhat terrible advertisement. So, and obviously these will have much more funny, interesting names once the game is actually published. So we slide this underneath the card here. We have the advertisement, and the nice thing here is that that advertisement gets us $1, and this show costs us $1. So that will net out and pay for itself. Now it's the purple player's turn, and they think that was a pretty good idea. They're going to do something very similar. They're going to go ahead and grab Awesome Industrial Accidents. It's also going to cost them a single $1, and it has similar viewership, slightly less in the second season, but it gets more as time goes on, and of course it's going to cost them an advertisement as well. This show's preferred time slot is 9 p.m., so they're going to put What's in My Pockets into reruns. Flip that over and put it over here, and then this goes here, and we have to pay that $1, and then of course we need to put an advertisement on this one as well, so we'll put this starting advertisement down here. And now it's the green player's turn, and since they started in third, they actually started with 9 money instead of the 5 of the first player, so they have a little more money to burn, so they think they can afford to go for this more expensive show, Old Folks Complaining, and put it in at the 8 p.m. slot. So the green player is going to spend $2 to the bank for the show, and then they're going to put Name That Stain into reruns, and add Old Folks Complaining into their 8 p.m. slot, so they're going to get the most viewership. Now if you look down here, you'll see a gray star/money sign. That means you may add a star or an advertisement to this show. You can't do both, but the really cool thing about this is that as an action later on, you can add one of those into this show before the end of the turn. I have this starting star here, but they're kind of terrible. These numbers are not good, and there's a bunch of good stars over there, so they're going to leave this open and hope to slide a much better star in here before the end of the season. Even though there are all these other options that are really great, I think the blue player, who is the start player, is going to use the advantage of going first to grab this show here because, well, first of all, they can't build this show. They don't have any more advertisements. They use their starting one. But they can take this one because they have a starting star, and it's pretty cheap. They only have $4 left, but they can afford this, so they're going to grab it. So that's going to cost them $1, and then they're going to slide that in at the 9 p.m. slot because that is preferred. And the emergency broadcast test hour is going to go into reruns, and the wacky TSA agent is going to take its place. Of course, this requires a star, so we'll take our starting star here, slide it underneath, and they're going to add 1 extra viewer for the first 3 seasons. There's only one more show that's going to be offered for the season. However, the purple player needs an advertisement in order to get it, and they don't have an advertisement. So they simply cannot take this card here, but they can kind of plan for the future, and so they can look at these advertisements here and take one hoping to grab this one before anybody else does. They figure it's probably not going to work out, but if we look at these advertisements here, we'll see that they have a little spiky number as well, and that is the amount of money you get immediately for taking the advertisement. We also see that these shows get you $2, $3, and $2 a season, which is way better than the $1 season that those starting advertisements got. But down on the bottom, we have a little bit more interesting stuff to take a look at. We see for Migraine Munition Painkiller, it says rotate unless show is on preferred time slot. So that means if this is on a show that's not in its preferred time slot, you rotate it around and now it's only going to be worth $0 to you each time. So you can still get that show that requires an advertisement, but you're going to get no benefit for it. So you really only want to take this card unless you really need that $2 or you think you can get it into a show that's in its preferred time slot. We also see that Seismic SUVs is only going to get you $1 for that show unless it's on sports, so that $3 is only going to get cashed in because only sports people are going to like those crazy SUVs, and Illicit Ileana's Illuminations is going to get rotated unless the show's on at 10 p.m. because it really only works for those people who stay up late. The purple player is going to take this one here. They don't have a good show in their 10 p.m. slot already, so it kind of leads them in that direction, but it's also going to give them $2 immediately, and then this card is going to go directly into their green room and await being tagged on to a show. Now our green player has an advertisement, and they know now that the purple player is probably going to try and take this card on their next turn because they put this advertisement here. The problem is that this Cyber Slug versus Mecha Earthworm is on at 8 p.m. and the green player already has Old Folks Complaining at 8 p.m. So they need to decide, is it worth grabbing this show knowing that it's going to go on in the undesirable time slot, so it's only going to give them 7 viewers instead of 9, and I think to them that is indeed worth it. So they're going to spend the $1 and slide this in at a bad time slot just to make sure that they get the benefit of these extra points. In this case, they need to get rid of Litter Training Weekly or Know That Rash. There's really no difference between the two of them for them, so they'll get rid of Litter Training Weekly, put in Cyber Slug versus Mecha Earthworm, and they're going to put the Litter Training Weekly into the reruns. This is going to cost them a single $1, and of course they need to put their advertisement down onto it, which is nice because it's going to pay the cost of keeping the show on the air. It's our blue player's turn again, and now there are no more shows to grab, so they need to look at other options that are available to them. They could grab a star and put them into their green room, but the problem is that our blue player only has $3, so they could afford these 2 stars here, but not these. They could also take an advertisement in order to get $2 or $1, so that would help them out going forward, or they could grab one of these network cards. So let's take a look at these. The first 2 of these cards have the little 1X in the top right corner, and what that means is you take this card and keep it face up in front of you until the right moment to use it, then you discard it and it gets you an effect. This first one says discard this card during rerun scoring, and then each rerun will give you an additional 4 viewers. Well, our blue player already has 2 reruns for this season, so that's 8 viewers, or a very good card. Next up we have the Rider. It says discard while developing a show, so that's when you take the show down from the row and put it in. You can choose one, use 1 fewer star, 1 fewer advertisement, or pay $0. So that's pretty flexible for the future. And then finally, add acquisition with an exclamation point. That means it happens the moment you take this card. You can't keep it. And this one says draw 2 ads, choose one to keep, and then get the money for the other and put it to the bottom of the deck. Our blue player can't say no to 8 extra viewers from the reruns. So they're going to go ahead and take this card and put it face up in their area, and that's their whole action. Our purple player is pretty bummed. They were only able to grab one of the 5 shows that were out for the season, but they have $8, so they can look to future seasons to try and do really well there. So look at the options up here. We have a couple good advertisements, but we know they just took an advertisement. These are pretty good network cards, but let's look at these stars. First up, we have a children's show host, but it says rotate if this show has advertisements, and we know we just took a really good advertisement, and as you can see, if you rotate it, the numbers are going to be much worse. Next up, we have the director, writer, editor, star, who's really expensive with $5, and they cost you $1 a season, but they've got great numbers here. However, you have to rotate this unless it's the only star on the show, so you really make sure that this is a singular person, but still very good numbers. Next up, we have physical comedy master. It's $1 each season, but we have to rotate this unless it's a sitcom. Let's see here. Well, we don't know until next season how many things are going to pop up. And finally, we have socially conscious star. It's $3, $1 each season, and then a reasonable amount of viewership. This is definitely the most well-rounded, least situational star. I think our purple player is going to grab this one. They have to pay the $3 to the bank in order to put the star into their green room, but fortunately you don't have to pay the upkeep while they're in the green room. That only comes into play when they're on a show. So now it's our green player, and we know that they're looking for a good star to add to their show, Old Folks Complaining, and that is a sitcom. Plus they have $6. So if we look at the physical comedy master, we already noticed that it's going to get flipped unless it's a sitcom, but we have it, and we can afford this $5, and it's going to give us lots of viewership going forward. Also, that Old Folks Complaining show has good numbers for a long time. It doesn't have the numbers front-loaded, so this is a great pick for green, so they're going to go ahead and grab it. They're going to spend that $5 to the bank, and this goes into their green room. Like I said before, it's going to cost an action to slide this underneath here, but it's going to add an additional 4 viewers for this first season, and then even more going forward. Our blue player still only has $3 and no advertisements or stars. They could take this ad acquisition to dig down and try to get a good ad and some money, but I think they're going to go ahead and take this migraine munition painkiller. They're going to get $2 for it. It's got good income, and it's likely they'll be able to find a show in the correct time slot. So this goes into their green room, and they get $2. Now it's our purple player's turn. They've got $5, which is pretty good. They've got a great ad, a great star, no more shows they can add in here, and they need to think about what they're going to do for the rest of their turn. They probably don't want to spend more money on another star. They've already got a good one, and this advertisement is really not that great. Plus, they already have a good one. So looking at these network cards, well, this writer is good. You can keep it for, as long as you want, many seasons, and use it at the right moment. And this one gets another advertisement they don't really want. So essentially, they need to think, are they going to pass, or are they going to take this writer network card? And I think they're probably going to go ahead and do that. So they get to keep this for the future. So now our green player wants to attach the physical comedy master onto the show Old Folks Complaining, so that's just going to take an action. They take this card here. They don't have to rotate it because they're putting it onto a sitcom. They slide it in just like that, and it of course makes the show cost a little bit more money, and they have to keep that in mind. They only have $1 currently, but I think they're going to be okay. It's back to our blue player's turn, and I want to show you this budget slot here. The last action that you can do as your action on a turn is to drop and budget, essentially taking you out of the round. And the first person to drop in budget is going to get $7, and the second is going to get $6 and then $5. But this is also going to be the new turn order for the second season. So that's a really important thing that each player is really starting to think about as to what their options are. So when we look at our blue area, we see that they were able to get these 2 good shows in these slots, and this one is just terrible. They really want to make sure they grab an 8 p.m. show. I mean, you can put any show here, but it's always good to get the correct time slot. So it's actually pretty good for them to be the first player in the second season, and they've got a reasonable amount of money, so what they're going to do is drop in budget. This means they take their piece here, they take it off the turn order track and put it on the budget track. They immediately get $7. And from this point on, blue will not be taking any actions. It'll just be purple and green. Purple is very set up for the next turn. They've got money, they've got flexibility, great ads and stars. They really want to make sure to get the best show to slide in because they're only able to get 1 in this first turn. So it probably makes sense for purple to also drop in budget. This means that they will get $6. It's now the green player's turn, and they know that nobody else can take any action. So there's really no penalty for them to do a whole bunch of stuff. So for their first turn, they're going to go ahead and just take this seismic SUVs, it's going to get them $1 and they'll throw it into their green room. There's no limit to the amount of advertisements and stars you can have in there. It's once again green's turn because both blue and purple have passed, so they'll go ahead and take this ad acquisition. It happens immediately, so they draw 2 ads, keep one, and then get the money from the other. They got Aztec chocolate bars and Mick tacos. We see that this one rotates unless you have stars left, so essentially you need to have more stars in your green room. This one gets rotated unless it's on at 8 p.m., and we're pretty committed to old folks complaining for being around for a few seasons, so this one's not good for us. So we'll take the $2 from this one and discard it, and then we'll put this one into our green room. So now they've got $4. The last options are stars, and we see that they can't even afford this star. It's $5. And this one's not great, but it's super cheap, and we just got an advertisement that wants us to have more stars in our green room, so they'll go ahead and spend the $1 to grab this children's show host. Our green player no longer has anything they want to do, so they'll go ahead and drop in budget, and they're going to get $5. So the season is over, and now each player is going to do their end of season tasks. Let's start with the blue player. The first thing they do is evaluate income. We see that they lose 1 money for very charismatic explosions, but it looks like the starting card 2 advertisement is going to net out on that, so they get 0 income. Next up, let's score our viewers in our reruns. So for viewers, we see that Very Charismatic Explosions is on at 10 p.m., so that's going to get us 10 viewers, and we got a handy dandy little score calculator down here that we can use before we put it on the main one. The Wacky TSA Agent is going to get us 8 viewers because it's on at 9 p.m., and we get an additional 1 for our starting actor or actress, so that is 9 points. And now unlocking your cat psychic potential gets us 0 viewers. I'm not too surprised about that. And now we score our reruns. We see we get 2 viewers for these reruns here. However, the blue player took this network card here, which was syndication, which gets you an extra 4 viewers per rerun show this season. So we're going to go ahead and discard this card. And so we're going to get the 2 basic ones plus 8 more for that syndication. So the blue player was able to get 29 viewers in the first season. That's great. And now they have to age all of their shows. You simply slide a cube down 1 column on each of them unless there is no column for that cube to slide down. And this shows how the public's opinion is changing for that show. Very Charismatic Explosions, people don't care, they still think it's awesome, but the Wacky TSA Agent is getting a little bit less interesting. Income for our purple player is also 0 because they go -1 +1, and so now our viewership, they get 10 right here because they're in the preferred time slot, so they'll go ahead and add that down. And unfortunately, you can play the recorder, and the Wide World of Forks is going to get them 0 viewers, and they get 1 for reruns. So purple only gets 11 viewers in this round, which is way worse than 29. However, keep in mind that purple is very much set up for a great next turn, and this show has some pretty good staying power, so they're certainly not out of it. And of course, they have to age their awesome industrial accidents. And now for the green player, we look at their income, we see they're +1 but -2. This means their income phase, they actually owe 1 money to the bank, but they're okay paying that. And now for viewers, they're going to get 8 + 4 viewers for the old folks complaining because this is on at the right time slot and this comedy master is really helping them out. Cyberslug versus Mecha Earthworm, unfortunately, is only going to get them 7 viewers instead of 9 because it's not on at its preferred time slot. Know That Rash is going to get 0 points, and then they get 2 points for reruns. So the green player was able to get 21 viewers this round, and now they go ahead and age both of these shows. I didn't show it for the other ones, but before you go on to the next season, you will also take all the shows in your reruns, put them down into the archives. They're there for a reason that I'll get to in just a minute. Now we establish a new player order. We move the marker up to the second season here. We discard anything left over from this season. And now if we look at our score track, we see this red zone that says use this side for the first round only, flip over after the first round. So this is pretty cool. You flip it over and now we see that the score track now works all the way around. We also have a little cheat sheet for how many stars, ads, network cards, and shows are going to get displayed out for the 2nd through 5th season. And lastly, this budget area has changed. Instead of being $7, $6, $5, we now have $10, $6, $2, and you get viewership for these first 2 sections. So there's a much bigger incentive for dropping early. Lastly, it's kind of neat. You'll see that there are only 3 slots here. That's because this whole piece here is specifically for the 3-player game. There's a different one of these for every single player set. And the last thing we do before the next season is we just draw all these cards, put them out into the player area, and we start again. The last thing I want to talk about is genre bonuses, and they just don't show up in the first season. They really start happening in the 3rd through 5th seasons. So what happens is once you have 3 shows of the same genre, so we have action or reality TV or sports, Once you have 3 in your entire media empire, which includes shows that are running, reruns, or shows in your archives, then first of all, you get 5 victory points or viewers that you put on the store track, and then you can get an advertisement or a star for free, which is pretty nice. Once you get to 5 of a specific type of genre in your media empire, you once again get the 5 victory points, but then you could choose a network card instead of a star or an advertisement, and at that point you can spend money to just straight up get viewership, and this is really the only way to cash out large amounts of money, so it's really important to try and synergize your genres. Once you've played through all 5 seasons, the game will be over. However, it's important to note that after you've done your drop-in-budget, end-of-round stuff for the 5th season, you will age all of your shows and then score all of your shows one more time. You won't score any reruns at that point, but this is a really important thing to keep in mind in that 5th round with shows that you're going to grab, is that you're also going to be scoring the 2nd tier on all of those. And the person with the most viewership wins the game. So now I'm going to give you a couple impressions of the networks that I've had while playing it. I do want to preface that this is in no way, shape, or form a review of the game, just some thoughts that have popped up or things that I thought were interesting. And realistically, the first of those is that the overall gameplay is quite simple. Like when I first looked at the rulebook, I was like, oh wow, there's quite a lot of words in here. But then as I read through the rulebook, I realized it was just very thorough. And at the end of the day, the game is pretty much just draw a card, put it in your area, with a couple tiny little differences, but for the most part, you either draw the card and pay for it, and put it in your green room, or you draw a card and pay for it, and put it in your shows, or you might draw a card, not pay for it, and it gives you a one-time effect. For the most part, that is the game, and you're just always thinking about, what do I want, and in what order do I want them, and in what order would I be upset about not getting them. And you look at what your opponents have, and you can see, oh well, none of these people even have a star, so that show that I really want that needs a star, maybe I can wait until next round the table and grab something else that's interesting. And that's pretty much the game in a nutshell, that idea of what can I get away with putting off, and what do I just need to really grab now. The next thing that kind of popped out to me really was the theme. There is no art on any of the cards. I think that the art is going to be wonderful based off of the prototype cover that I got, but just looking at all of the titles of the shows and the network cards and the stars and everything, this is a funny game. Like it's funny to say, you know, oh, I got, you know, an old, long-running actor playing the bikini chainmail warrior, and I have, you know, a poncho advertisement stuck on the side, and I like the theme of it all. It kind of feels like you're making a network station to a certain degree. You are, of course, just drafting cards, but you can see your lineup and you put things into reruns, and I enjoyed the experience of running this little TV station that I had in front of me, and I enjoyed laughing at the various combinations that I came up with, as well as the other people around the table. And the last thing I have to say is that I did enjoy playing the game. It's fun. There are lots of decisions to be made, especially, you know, the first round. You look at all those cards, there's like 15 different cards out there, and as I said before, the game is essentially pick up a card in the game, and so which one of those 15 cards do you want to do, and you gotta kind of analyze and put it all together. It's got some neat stuff going on. It seemed relatively balanced, but again, I haven't played it anywhere near enough times to make authoritative statements on that, but I had fun playing it, and I think that is a great start. If you'd like to see more previews like this one, as well as in-depth game reviews, full game playthroughs, and vlogs, please subscribe to my channel. Also, if you'd like to become more involved with the channel, you can directly support it at patreon.com/JonGetsGames. Thanks for watching.